All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Jerry Merkins. With me is CEO of Gunner Technology, Cody Swan. What's up, Cody?
Oh, just trying to figure out how much it costs to get access to the Epic Medical API, even though I looked that up just a couple days ago.
It costs a lot. Spoilers.
Well, the thing is, I was before we actually finished the bidding for this project. I want to make sure that because I know the cost, and I want to make sure it's annually and not monthly, because that would greatly affect the amount we put down on the bid.
All right, so let's dive into the Country Shore giveaway. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. Visit them at countryshoreoutfitters.com. The winner of our Country Shore giveaway, which you can sign up for on our Facebook page, is actually Alice J. From Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, kind of out my way, or my former way, the old Outer Banks. So, Alice, you got a Country Shore hat heading your way, along with copies of our ebooks. We got 4 ebooks now. We got a 5th one on the way after the series ends. And while you're on our Facebook page signing up for the Country Shore giveaway, go ahead and sign up or answer our question of the week, which this past week, Cody, what was the question of the week?
Sign up and answer our question.
Sign up for the question of the week. Actually, sign up for Should I and answer our question of the week on Should I. There we
go. Have you quit or plan to quit Facebook this year?
How many people quit, and how many people? Where did people answer? Where did we get our answers?
50. We're like 50-50. We're like 50-50.
Oh, nice.
I know. I'm telling you, the younger generation is dropping Facebook like a bad habit, man. But that kind of leads right into this week's question of the week, which is, who owns Instagram? Without looking it up, who owns Instagram? That's our question of the week this week.
Trump?
Probably soon enough.
That's a great question for people who have abandoned Facebook for Instagram.
Yes.
So hop on Facebook if you're still on Facebook. Hop on Twitter or our app Should I to answer that question of the week. I guess Should I? That question is it's kind of it becomes a strange option. Should be like Facebook versus the field.
Should I answer the question?
And then leave a comment below saying what your answer is. So definitely hop on our Facebook page, sign up for the Country Shore giveaway, answer our question of the week. But to dive into this week's topic, it's actually really interesting and it's a topical topic. So this week's topic is actually about launching your idea. So these past 4 weeks, we sort of talked about spelling out your idea, planning out your idea, paying for your idea, the actual technological side of building out your idea. But at some point, you've got to actually launch the dang thing. So this week, we're going to be talking about, I guess, sort of that whole process. So just to dive in, Cody, and maybe a good place to start is, when is the idea ready for launch?
It's never ready for launch. It's ready for launch when
it's never, and it's always ready for launch.
Right. Exactly. That's right. It's never ready for launch, and it's always ready for launch. And you basically just have to make the decision to go for it. And obviously there is a big, you want to have certain things in place before you launch. And mainly what that is a methodology to quickly change and deploy new versions of the application, because you want to be able to fix anything quickly that's broken. And also you want to be able to add new features or tweak features very closely or very carefully as well. And in lieu of both of those, you want to have a mechanism in place that collects feedback both qualitatively and quantitatively, and reports on things like app crashes and stuff like that. So what I mean is, like, you want to have like an analytics tool in place that'll show you what people are actually using your application for and how they're using your application. But also like survey type pop-ups, like, hey, you've been using the app for a while. Can you give us some feedback in return for a $5 gift card to Amazon, something like that? Because you have to be able to, people give feedback all the time, and a lot of times they really don't believe the feedback they're giving, and their behavior will actually tell the real story of what's going on. So you want to be able to blend those two things to be able to make beneficial decisions on how you should modify the application, rather than just saying, I feel like we should do this. You kind of look at the numbers and let that decide the roadmap after launching.
So it's more important to launch early and get feedback than it is to try and perfect the product and launch late.
Yeah, exactly. It's much more important to have a process in place and the tools in place and to get the idea out there. And you just don't want it to be a complete disaster is basically what you're trying to do when you initially launch a product. And the other thing that's really beneficial is if you have a group of people who are willing to help you test the application, sort of be your beta group of users. That's beneficial as well.
And would that be kind of family, friends, colleagues, just
Yeah,
sort of top
exact.
your immediate contact list?
Yeah, exactly. You kind of build up a big stable of people who are willing to do that, and then you kind of give them these people. You don't really need to give incentive for, but then as you widen your user base, you're trying to kind of incentivize people to not only use your app but give you feedback. And so you want to have a platform that can incentivize people to do that.
Talk about
Um,
the talk about the process leading up to a launch. What is that like? Do you sort of Eh, and I guess I'm thinking here more about the larger launch, not sort of the immediate friends and family and colleagues, but sort of the if you're sort of taking it to that next step and launching it to the wider public, what's the ramp up to that effort? What are some of the common pitfalls to watch out for? What are some sort of best practices? What's the best way to accomplish that?
yeah, it's kind of like so. Basically to get to launch, like you said, you're never ready to launch and you're always ready to launch is basically, we talked about this in this series. You sit down at the beginning of the project and you come up with a whole slew of user stories. And what we've also said is that we begin working on those user stories and show the stakeholder the project in a demonstratable format every week or at the end of every sprint. And so we also said again that the stakeholder has the latitude to be like, that was the user story I said, but now that I see it, I don't like the way it works, or we really need to do this also. So those are those are things where as a stakeholder you need to have restraint. You need to be able to kind of weigh the pros and cons of adding things during the development. So if you see a user story that we came up with and you're like, this is just 180 degrees wrong, um, then you need to tell us that I know I said this, but this is, now that I see it, it's really completely wrong, and we fundamentally need to change this. Versus, I see this user story now, and I see that it could be better, but it's not going to fundamentally change the app. So let's put this in the backlog. Let's write this user story down, but let's not make this a prerequisite for launch. And we'll kind of just move on with it the way it is. So during development, you have to do that. But when you get through that first tranche of user stories, generally what I encourage the stakeholder to do is take a step back and look at, and number one, let me also be clear, this is after all the bugs that are known are fixed. After all the bugs that are known are fixed and all the user stories are completed, the stakeholder should take a step back and use the application like very intimately. Meaning, if it's a kind of a business application, use it themselves. If it's a social application, find one other person to use it with and use it for like a week, 2 weeks, just uninterrupted, no development, and then come back with a list of things, two lists of things, like a list of things that would be nice to have and a list of things that must be done before launch. And that list of things that must be done before launch, that's it. That's like the last thing. Those are the last things we do before launch. And then we put it out there and start getting that feedback.
We actually have a question here, which is, don't you want your app to be perfect before you launch it? Which I guess in a perfect world, you would want your app to be perfect, but the
Yeah,
world ain't perfect. So
that's the thing.
you kind of just have to get it out there.
Yeah, you want it to be perfect, but it never will be. It absolutely never will be. I mean, I was using Gmail on my way home just now, and the app wasn't working. So like, you want to, but it never will be. So you basically, it's kind of like saying, don't you wish you could wear the perfect shirt? Well, yeah, you do wish you could wear the perfect shirt, but it's never going to happen.
I think a
So
Gunner Technology Polo is as close you can get to a
it's as
perfect shirt.
close. It's as close as you can get. It's as close as you can get. So you basically kind of have to just acknowledge that. and move forward with it. It's really tough, especially with people who are really vested in the idea. It bothers them to no end. I mean, I get it. When I feel like there's something undone, it drives me insane. Like I can't sleep when I feel like there's a task or something that's incomplete. But you kind of just have to view an application like life. You're not done. You're just not done. You just have to every day move forward and make the best of it as best you can, kind of thing.
I think one of the big things I've seen with launching is it's not necessarily a fear of failure, it's or fear of success, I should say. It's a nervousness about if success comes, how to handle it. Because I think there's a big pushback against launching in terms of if the idea explodes, what do we do then? I don't think we're not ready to handle that kind of traffic. We're not ready to handle that kind of publicity, which I guess is probably a really good problem to have. But I've seen that over and over again where there's sort of a hesitancy to launch. I think because you only get to do it once, and they're worried that if they succeed, but they're not able to handle that success, then it's just a huge wasted opportunity.
Maybe the perfect analogy is like a wedding, and like the launching is actually like the wedding, but then you have the whole marriage afterwards. So like you don't want to go into like your wedding in like disaster where your relationship's like barely
Right.
clinging to life. But your relationship just doesn't have to be perfect. If everyone waited for the relationship to be perfect to get married, no one would ever get married. And so you get married, and then you work every day on making your relationship better.
Right, right.
I mean, I'm gonna pat myself on the back because that
That's
was
pretty
just
good.
like, that was right off the cuff right there.
And sometimes you get acquired down the line,
That's right,
and and that's the end of the marriage.
and
Um,
sometimes other partners enter the business, and
yeah,
that's not akin to marriage. That's
yeah,
where
that's a topic for
that's where the analogy
another show.
breaks down.
So what are some other pitfalls with launching that you've seen? We sort of talked about not launching. We've talked about a fear of successful launches. What are some other hesitancies that you've seen with people not wanting to launch their idea?
Well, two things come to mind is two and a half things, I guess. One thing is kind of combined: marketing or lack of a marketing plan slash strategy. So again, before you launch, you can't have a perfect market strategy because you kind of have to see how the users use the app. But let's be honest, you're not going to accumulate any users, any significant number of users without a solid marketing strategy. In most cases, sometimes, well, even if you have a B2B app, you still have to market it in the form of like in-person marketing and things like that. So you need a marketing strategy and you need a marketing budget. I think we've talked about this on this series, but generally it's going to be at least what your development budget was, probably maybe even 2x what your development budget was. So a big mistake that I see with launching is people have exhausted their budget to get to launching and have saved nothing for marketing, and or don't have a marketing strategy in place for onboarding new users. Like the I think that we as developers overlook this a lot. And one of the most important parts of launching is that marketing strategy, but integrated with the app, where the onboarding process for a new user is as easy and quick as possible. Like for a new application, you you probably don't want new users, again, depending on what it is, but you don't want users to like fill out a captcha or verify their phone number. I mean, unless there's good reason to have it, what you're doing is you're creating barriers to entry, where if you have a new product, you just want as many people as you can. You don't care if they're Russian trolls, Chinese trolls. You just want as much uptick as possible. Initially, you start pruning those hedges for a mass consumer application as you go. But right out the gate, you just want as many signups as possible. And part of that process is making sign up as easy as possible, meaning require as little information as possible. And then also, once they are signed up, make that onboarding process to how to use the app as easy as possible. And you hear this all the time. It's mainly in the design community. Well, a well-designed app doesn't need like a tutorial or something like that. That is such BS. Like the analogy is like everyone knows what a stop sign is. You don't need a tutorial to know what a stop sign is. No, but you need to take a driver's license test. Like there always is a learning curve. People aren't just going to look at your design and magically get it. Good design doesn't require a lot of hand holding, but if you want to make the experience as seamless as possible, you need a little bit of hand holding for those new users.
So I guess in terms of preparing a marketing strategy, that's sort of another key aspect to have before you launch. In addition to the feedback mechanisms that we talked about, you want to also have a long-term marketing strategy, and basically you want to put almost all of your budget towards that marketing strategy once the initial development period is complete.
Yeah, exactly. And generally generally the way that we recommend entrepreneurs and not just entrepreneurs, anyone handle this, is that they go into this where they start with a minimal budget. Like basically you have to understand that your application is probably going to cost about $1,000 a month just to support it, with hosting costs, with development support, with minor tweaks. $1,000 is the baseline. So right after you launch, start at that baseline, and see how the app progresses with that $1,000 budget. What can get done with that? And again, I'm talking about working with us. Similar companies will have a similar arrangement, but see what you can do with that $1,000, and then again, double that for the marketing budget. So start with $1,000 per month for development, and then double that for marketing, and see where you get. And that's why it's really important to have a marketing strategy before you launch. Because if you're just throwing $2,000 a month at, say, Facebook ads, you're going to be wasting your money, because they're not magic. You have to have like a sales funnel or marketing funnel and all these things in place. So that's why I said it's so critical to have a marketing process. I did want to go back to one point that I failed to make earlier about this whole thing, how we're saying where launching is kind of like the marriage or the wedding, and then you have the marriage. People wonder why government software, government websites are such crap. It's because they don't do that. It's when the contract ends, they have a finality, right? Like you build what you say you're going to build, and then it's like, there you go. Sometimes you'll have a support contract, but it's just to fix stuff. It's not an ongoing relationship where you're actively making the product better. And it decays. Like software is just like anything else where it decays, whether because technology changed or even just from code rot, which is where things just go wrong, like a oil change with your car. And so one of the reasons why government software and apps are so terrible is because it is this, okay, here's the wedding, and then, okay, everything's gonna be fine after that kind of thing.
So in terms of, sorry, I got sidetracked here. In terms of actually launching the idea, just talk through the actual process of launching. Like I know we've had launches in the past that have taken entire weekends. We've had launches where it was just a flip of a switch and everything went swimmingly. So any advice there in terms of making the launch as seamless as it can possibly be?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've learned a lot in our time, and launching, really, the actual physical act of launching should be no big deal. It should just, at the end of the day, if you're trying to keep the development under wrap, I mean, the bottom line is, unless you have a sensitive application, you can develop it in the open, meaning it can be wired up. Say you're developing a web app and the URL is mycoolapp.io. Well, unless there's some reason why myawesomeapp.io needs to be kept secret, you should be deploying to myapp.io regularly and doing your testing there, because you haven't launched anything yet. No one is going to happen upon myapp.io. And if they happen upon it when it's not ready, it doesn't really matter. So the act of launching most times is just saying, we launched.
Right.
It's mainly marked by the beginning of a
So a period of slower development and increased marketing.
Exactly. And a campaign to accumulate users, whether that's that private alpha group, that expanded beta group, or then again, like the general audience. And so people call it like a soft launch, a beta launch, and then like a general release kind of thing. They're all launches. It's just different stages. And what we do is we have the actual deployment process set up in the first or second iteration. So we're deploying just like we would for a launch every single week. So it's not a grand ribbon cutting scenario from a technological standpoint. Sure, you can have this build up if you want, and you can like start a Facebook page and have like a countdown to launch and all that stuff. That's all just marketing fluff. And sometimes it can be effective. Sometimes it really isn't. Generally we found is like building some places will have, they've stopped doing this in large part, but it was very popular about 10 years ago where you'd have a landing page, a single page website. And all it was a sign up to be notified when mycoolapp.io became available. And that's kind of how they launched, is when they launched, all those people who had signed up would get an email saying, okay, now you can test out mycoolapp.io kind of thing. I've seen that type of thing go away because people really don't care. They really don't care. They're not going to be like, oh, let me know when myapp.io is available. They're either going to use it or they're not. And so there's no point in even marketing a sign-up sheet until you have the app. I mean, why spend money getting people to sign up for something that doesn't exist yet when you can just spend the money to get them to sign up when it does exist?
Exactly. So any closing thoughts on launching your idea for the entrepreneurs out there?
Like I said, the biggest thing I can say for the entrepreneurs out there is to really put on your business hat and weigh the pros and cons of launching versus not launching, and make sure you are budgeting time to put those analytics in place. Like, have a list of questions you want to be able to ask about your users and what that means. So like, how much time are they spending on X? Do you have a desired process that they should go through, from like registration to welcome to creating a should I? And again, maybe it's a much longer process than that, but know where they're stopping. What stage do they get to, and why? Why are they stopping after welcome? Why aren't they creating that should I? Have a list of questions before you launch that you want to be able to answer, and a process in place to answer those questions. Because then otherwise you're going to be kind of chasing your own tail, using your own intuition on what needs to be done. You need to take that guesswork out of it before you launch.
So in addition to iterative development, it's really like iterative launching, where each launch is just successively making the product that much better, that much more marketable.
Correct. And the, like I keep hammering home, analytics and marketing are the two things that are just greatly overlooked in all of this.
Well, and that's actually a great point to end it, because we have an episode on marketing coming up in 2 weeks. And we also have an update, or sorry, we have an episode on how to update your idea, which is largely going to be about the analytics that you gather. So keep an eye out for those episodes. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to hop on our Facebook page to sign up for the Country Store giveaway. Country Store is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countrystoreoutfitters.com. And while you're on our Facebook page, answer this week's question of the week, which, Cody, remind them what that is.
Without looking it up, who owns Instagram?
God damn it. Spoilers. So hop on our Facebook page, answer that question of the week, or if you're not on Facebook, hop on Twitter or Should I or anywhere else that we post that question. Make sure to check out the blog post for this episode at gunnertech.com. The podcast will be on iTunes. Check out our ebooks at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBooks, Kobo, and anywhere else ebooks are sold. And make sure to tune in next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the next episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. I'm Derry. That's Cody. We'll see you next week.